Hi folks, and welcome to Truck King. Today is exciting because we're looking at this, the 2024 Jeep Wrangler, and there's a whole bunch of things that have arrived for the Jeep this year that's gonna make it better off-road, and maybe more importantly, safer on-road, and we're gonna go through all of it right now. Alrighty folks, well here we are driving in the Wrangler 4xe Willys edition, or the Willis edition as it should properly be pronounced, but even the Jeep folks call it a Willys, so I'll call it a Willys as well, but it is a Willis. Anyways, I digress. We're out here driving on the highway, and I think the first thing I want to get out of the way with sort of the on-road ride is it hasn't really changed all that much, and that's not a bad thing. The JL is definitely the best riding Wrangler on the road that has ever existed, and that's still true. Now, while cruising on this highway, it does feel like maybe it's wandering a little less. That's always been a criticism of Jeep Wranglers, that they, take a little bit of, quite a bit of input actually to go straight down the road. And this one actually feels like it needs a little bit less, so I also think that they've improved there as well. And as much as you can tell me how great the off-roading is, the on-road experience here is also quite important. Now, as I'm sure you've already noticed, we are absolutely fully Jeeping today. We've got the doors off. And one thing I love is these door-off mirrors. That's so important. For the longest time, you took the doors off your Wrangler and you couldn't have a mirror. That didn't make any sense for safety, and they came out with those. But then I think the biggest thing that Jeep did to improve the safety of the Wrangler is side curtain airbags. You can see them right up here. They're incorporated right into the roll cage, and they're in the front and in the back. And you know what, especially for rear seat occupants, the Wrangler before had no airbags back there whatsoever, so you were basically on your own. And I think we can honestly thank the Ford Bronco for this, because Bronco came out with rear side curtains and then Jeep had to catch up. So competition is definitely good, and in this case it's wound up with us having a safer Jeep Wrangler, which is good news. Another upgrade has arrived for the interior as well. And again, I won't call it revolutionary, definitely evolutionary, but one of the biggest changes, a standard 12.3-inch touchscreen here in the center stack. That's going to be standard across the range, and I just think everyone's doing this now, not only going with bigger screens, but also just making them standard. So if you do go for the Sport, if you go for the less expensive models, you're not getting you're not getting an interior that feels like it's a significant step down. And talking about interiors, I'll show you the Rubicon now, and you can see here in our Rubicon 4xe we get this blue stitching, this kind of motif on the seat, the blue Rubicon stitching there, and then like I mentioned on the high altitude, this is leather here on the Rubicon. It's got this stitching, and it's actually a bit of like a textured leather. That's a little bit different as well, and then stitching in the steering wheel. So really it's the stitching and a little bit on the color scheme that's different depending on which model you go for. Now, of course, because this is the Rubicon, you're getting all these great off-road features down here. So there's your front and rear locker, off-road plus mode, which allows you to lock up your rear end in high range, and your sway bar disconnect, and of course 4 auxiliary ports so you can hook up whatever you want. So I got a lineup of Wranglers here, folks. I just want to show you some of the differences. So here is a Rubicon. This is a Rubicon 4xe. The 4xe always has all of these blue accents around here, around the grill, and the blue tow hooks. That'll always tell you that it's 4xe. Now if you go for 392, which is right back here, its motif is gold. So you get the gold tow hooks down here, the gold lettering right there on 392, and then the gold over there on your Rubicon 2. And all the grills are unique. All the grills will have different color surrounds and then different color grill bars. So they all do get a bit of a different look. And then finally, we have this guy. This is the Wrangler High Altitude, essentially what you probably call the luxury Wrangler. And you can see the key here is body color everything. You get that body color front bumper, blue tow hooks because this is a 4xe, and then those Really nice looking wheels. So there's a couple small styling differences depending on which model you get. And then the same goes for the interior. Over here, you're going to get some unique stitching here on the high altitude. This is actually leather wrapped on the Rubicon models. It's a bit of this material feel. There's your 12.3 inch touchscreen. And everything else here is pretty much the same. So little things like stitching, a couple little accents to separate the interiors. One other interior feature I have to mention, the Wrangler now has powered front seats, and I got to use them. They were comfortable and they worked fine. This is just another convenience the Wrangler never had, and now it does. Plus, you don't have to worry because those things are sealed up, so when you do take advantage of the Wrangler's 34 inches of water fording, your seats will still work. Now, I mentioned this is the 4xe, the plug-in hybrid powertrain. No major changes for the 2024 model year. It works well. It's got plenty of power. And the thing I notice is when you put it in hybrid mode, it likes to use that electricity. So it really errs on the side of going to the battery as often as it can. And then the other thing is nice is you have a choice. You can put it in e-save and save your power for later, or you can put it in just electric mode and use your power now. So I still appreciate those choices that are here in the Wrangler. But again, powertrains aren't the story here. The powertrains all stayed the same. It's the refinement on road, the safety, and then of course, most importantly, what it's like off-road, and it tows more now. So luckily we're gonna be able to show you all of that too, coming up right now. All right, now folks, I'm getting a little taste of the Wrangler 392 on-road, and we're headed to the off-road course. But first, the first thing I did is I opened up the exhaust, and we gotta nail it. Oh, not only does it sound amazing, but I mean 470 horsepower in a Wrangler is pretty silly, honestly, but it's silly in the best possible way. This thing just absolutely jumps. It sounds incredible. I didn't know how long 392 was gonna last. If you had asked me last year, I probably would have told you it was gonna go away. So kudos to Jeep. If you still want a big V8 in your Wrangler, you can absolutely get it. And it does put a big smile on your face. It's almost impossible not to. So off-road time, Wrangler 392. We're here in Sand Hollow State Park. We got her in 4 low already, and we're aired down to 19 or 20 PSI. And it probably goes without saying, but it feels great right off the hop. I mean, the Jeep Wrangler is designed from the get-go to be good off-road. The Rubicon I'm in here gets a 1.5 inch lift, almost 13 inches of ground clearance, approach angle well above 40 degrees, departure angle at 40 degrees. That's the first thing that makes you feel real confident, is just knowing that as I bump over all these rocks out here in the sand, I just don't need to worry about my bumpers or my belly dragging. And then, you know, you do have steel bumpers and 4 steel skid plates underneath as well. So if you do happen to rub something, you should be fine. But that's just something that kind of has to be said about the Jeep Wrangler every time you drive it, is you got to remember that even the most basic version of the Wrangler was designed for this. So when you put your head in that mind space, you really start to understand this vehicle. Now, the other thing I'll also mention real quick are the adventure guides. So we actually have one here for our little trail, and the information you get is incredible. The map is awesome. You can set waypoints. It tells you things like what the signs say alongside of the trail, and it tells you the scenery you can expect, and it tells you exactly where there's going to be a drop-off or a water crossing. And yeah, it's really smart technology, just helping off-roaders have peace of mind. You know, that's what it is. You're heading to the trail, and there's no mysteries. You already understand what you're getting into, what it's going to feel like. Okay, now we're getting into the soft sand here. We'll give her a little throttle. And it's sliding all over the place. But KO2s feel great in the sand. And then, I mean, the 392 is just a monster. And I think my favorite thing, so here's a little rocky hill climb. you worry with a big engine like this that maybe it's going to be A, heavy in the front end, and then B, it's going to be hard to modulate. You're not going to be able to really smoothly lay on the power. And so far, that has not been my experience here, especially in low range. I mean, you just got to barely feather the throttle, and this thing just starts climbing. Now, we also have the sway bar disconnected in the front end. So I can definitely feel sort of that looseness, and that just means that all of my tires, especially the front, I mean, they're staying in contact with the ground at all times. So another important aspect of this Rubicon. Oh, we got a nice rock crawl coming up here, folks. We're gonna really get our angles going, and that's another chance for me now to put on off-road pages, yet another system here in the infotainment. And we'll see what kind of pitch and roll we get out of this trail, because it looks pretty steep, man. And going up. Straightening up. We're up here on this rock spine, basically. It's just wide enough for a Jeep. But there we go, I'm through. That was very cool. Now, we do have some spotters. You might have noticed them here from the Jeep Jamboree, so they're helping us out. And up on an obstacle like that, man, it is important. I might feel it as I'm towing, or then when you upgrade, of course. Oh man, this feels so sketchy. But it's so nice to have a spotter out there, just on some wild angles here. Okay. And creeping down now. Oh, that's 29 degrees. 29. 29 degrees on the pitch there I just saw. Uh-oh. Now that's something a little interesting. Power steering system hot. Suggesting that the power steering is overheating. It's 88 degrees Fahrenheit outside according to the Jeep right now. But yeah, that's not bueno. Do the upgrades really make a difference out here? Well, in the side curtain airbags, even the full float axle, unless you put bigger tires on, the screen, it's not necessarily making the Jeep way better off-road. So I actually feel like this update, the Jeep got a little better off-road, but it got a lot better in a lot of other areas, like safety, like towing, like technology. So we'll keep off-roading here, and again, not trying to say it's bad at all. It's incredible off-road, absolutely ridiculous. But I don't feel like it's made a massive leap in the off-road space. I feel like the pretty big leaps have come more in the on-road technology and safety world. So there's the Wrangler winching this buggy up the rocks there. It's an 8,000 pound Warn winch on the Wrangler, 90-foot synthetic rope. And of course, all engineered by Jeep straight from the factory. So you're getting all the crash test safety, and you're getting a warranty, which is always a big deal. And then boom, just like that, from inside that Jeep, you can let them back down. Wrangler change, everybody. I'm still off-road here in Sand Hollow State Park, but now I'm in a 4xe Rubicon, yes, with the doors and the roof off. So living that true Jeep life. And you know what? It's something that in every Wrangler review, I don't even always mention, but it has to be mentioned. There's very few other vehicles you can get that offer such an open air experience. And especially out here in somewhere as beautiful as this, when you are off-road, there is something to that. It really kind of connects you a little bit more with the world around you, and that's what off-roading's supposed to be all about, right? So again, nothing new there on the Wrangler, but something that always needs to be kind of harkened on is just, yeah, the open air experience is really cool. Well, folks, we're leaving the off-road course now. That was some serious off-roading. Again, Sand Hollow's awesome. Crazy cool steep rocks, weird rock steps on funny off-camber angles, and then that deep sand. And the Wrangler just ate it. Again, I think the last gen Wrangler probably would have done pretty much just as well as this one did out here today. So my verdict isn't so much that it's incredibly that much better off-road. I love the winch. I love the full float axle, especially for upgrades. But then maybe most importantly, Jeep didn't do anything to downgrade the off-roading. And maybe that sounds funny, but hey, they could have looked at the Bronco and said, you know what? We need independent front suspension. And they could have done things like that, but they didn't. Jeep stays true to the enthusiasts. That's what the full float axle feels like. It's one of those features where if you don't know about it and you don't care, well then it's just an axle. It's gonna drive just normally. But if you do care about it, if you do wanna upgrade those tires, you're gonna appreciate that Jeep went ahead and did that for you. So the changes that have come here for off-roading, they're for the hardcore enthusiasts. They really are. Jeep always caters to that group, and I do appreciate that. And then if you do happen to want to buy one of these and just drive it to the mall, well, you know, fill your boots. You can do that too. But Jeep isn't catering to those folks. They're making sure that the guys who are running these off-road trails regularly, guys and girls, of course, are happy with all of these upgrades. And I think they nailed it. I think if I can offer one other piece of advice or one other learning from today, it has to do with powertrains. I went off-road in a Rubicon 4xe and a 392 Rubicon, and I'll take the 392 all day. In fact, I'll also take the turbo or just the V6 over the 4xe for off-roading specifically, and I'll tell you why. I do like the all-electric torque, the low-end power. It's there. But there's a weird moment when the 4xe switches from electric power to gas, when the engine kicks on, that it almost feels like you lose power for a second, and then sometimes with the gas engine, you almost get a lurch. It was harder to modulate. I always talk about modulation. This one did seem a little trickier. The system kept switching up to what was giving the power, and I just didn't like it. It just didn't feel confident to me because I didn't always know exactly what was going on with it. So yes, I think today I'm really feeling like I would go skip the 4xe if I just want to go off-road and get the V8, or like I said, just the V6 even. And now here we are towing with the Wrangler. So the first thing I want to get out of the way, the new 5,000 pound tow rating, that's on the 2-liter turbo and the 3.6 liter V6. You're not getting that out of the big 392 or the 4xe. And right now we're driving with the V6. So we've got an Airstream trailer on the back. GVWR on that trailer is 5,000 pounds. Unloaded like it is right now, it's probably closer to 4,300 pounds. We do have an equalizing hitch on, which I absolutely would recommend with any type of travel trailer or even high-sided box trailer. And the other thing I want to kind of hit right up front is we can be honest and say Wranglers are not great tow vehicles. They never have been. All the things you want for off-roading, like soft suspension, ground clearance, all that stuff, it's kind of against towing. It's the antithesis of good towing. But for 2024, Jeep has boosted the tow rating to 5,000 pounds. So the question is that legitimate, or did they just, push the number up and now it feels that much scarier? And on our little tow loop that I'm doing here today, this trailer feels really good. The biggest difference, and we tow with pickup trucks all the time, the biggest difference is the soft suspension. When you're coming up and over bumps, you just feel that squish in the suspension. Whereas in a truck, you get something a little bit more solid, so it feels a little bit more confident. But I haven't felt the tail wagging the dog at all. The trailer's back there, I feel it, but it is not pushing around the Wrangler, which is something I felt in other Wranglers before. And so far so good here. The nose is not high, doesn't feel like I'm squatting. And then we also have a dealer installed trailer brake controller you can get on your Wrangler now too. It's something else I'd absolutely recommend if you're towing something this big. But I can, I think, say confidently that Jeep definitely made this a better tow vehicle, and that's important because the Wrangler's an adventure machine, and usually you want to bring something along with you for an adventure like an Airstream or a boat or ATVs. So yeah, good on Jeep for raising it, and I think that this is a real, legitimate engineering change, and I can feel the difference. Sandstorm. Hello, desert. Well, folks, we have arrived at the end of this video, and what can I say? I think Jeep made the Wrangler better off-road, made it better on-road, made it tow better, and most importantly, didn't screw up any of the things that Jeep owners already know and love about the Wrangler. So folks, that's it for this video. Now please go below into the comments, let me know what you think of this 2024 Jeep Wrangler and all the changes that have arrived. While you're down there, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member, and then come right back here to Truck King to see what we're testing next. See ya.